Okay, we're live?
Yeah.
All right, let's do this. Hi, Instagram, hi, TikTok, and hi, YouTube. Today's live session is really about if you are a green card holder coming back into the US, what kind of problems do you face? The success story we are doing today is about when a CBP customs officer confiscates the green card and doesn't even go through deferred inspection and directly gives it to an immigration judge, how we were able to get that green card back. Okay, it's not technically we didn't get it back, but we got them to get the green card. Okay, so I'm gonna walk you through that success story in the end, but just like what we always do during these live events, we talk about an important news update that you really don't see online, that you can only find right here, and that's hopefully somewhat tangentially related to the success rate that we're talking about. So in this case, I want to report to you exactly how custom officers are dealing with green card holders who are coming back to the US. And this thing, you might have seen some news about it. People who have been detained, US citizens who have been detained. You might have seen green card holders, their green cards getting confiscated, green card holders who are deported. You're seeing all sorts of these things on the news, but it's far more pervasive and far more in depth than what you just see online. Because what you see online, you might just think, okay, that's 1 out of 1,000,000, right? The news is just doing what the news does. They're taking the worst case scenarios and blowing it up. But I want to report to you right here that the custom officers across the United States, both on the border as well as the airports, there has been a crazy stark contrast between what we have seen in the past few months here in the United States versus what we've seen in the past 4 years. Okay, now during COVID, the standards have been laxed, and then they got stricter 2 years ago, and then last year they got a little stricter, but it was kind of like a gradual situation, and then suddenly these past 2 months it's like shot up by like 300%, if not more. Let me give you some examples. Okay, these are cases that we see have happened and happened to our clients as well. Somebody who's had a green card for over 10 years, flying in and out of the country, no problem. But just a few weeks ago, when they came in, their green card was confiscated. There was no admission into the United States. The US citizen spouse, US citizen children were allowed in, of course, but the permanent resident green card holder was not allowed to come in and was given to ICE, put in custody, and is still detained as of today. It's been 2 weeks now. And why? Because on their record, they see that they were previously convicted. Even though the case was dropped, it was previously convicted for a drug offense. But again, this situation has been going on for 10 years. The family members flew over to our office to see what we can do. And they asked, why? Why is this happening? Right? They've been in and out of the country. They are good citizens in the United States. How can this happen? And I said, there's only one word answer, and I think you already know. It's just a change in administration. A new president, a new directive, a new policy, a new president's memo. The CBP officers are becoming much more strict regarding this issue, regarding the issues of green card holders who are entering back in the United States. Just so you know, as a background to what we're talking about, anytime a green card holder leaves the United States and enters back in, it could be considered them seeking admission into the United States. Okay, that's a very technical term. And again, they could be construed as seeking admission. Now, why is that important? Well, because if they are not seeking admission, if they are already admitted, if they are already green card holders, then the CBP officer cannot charge them with an inadmissibility and say, sorry, I don't think you are a lawful permanent resident. I think you've already abandoned it. I think you already lost your privileges as a green card holder. So I am going to confiscate your green card, right? So let me repeat. If you are not seeking admission, if you've already been admitted, if you're part of this American fabric, you're just, it was a brief and temporary stay abroad and you're coming back. That is fine. But if you are seeking admission, then the officer has all the rights and privileges behind the first and last line defense of the United States government. The CBP officer could say, I think you've already abandoned your green card. I think you are inadmissible. You are inadmissible for all these things. And so I'm going to take away your green card. You might have a good, compelling story, but it's above my pay grade to listen and to adjudicate that. You know, the first line, when you're talking to the officer, that first 90 seconds, they might say, sorry, there's a lot that you need to explain, go to secondary. When you go to the secondary, the small room where the private officer investigates you more, maybe another 5, 10, 20 minutes where they talk to you. And if they determine, hey, I think you are inadmissible. I think you cannot be admitted into the U.S. I think you've already abandoned your green card. I think you have committed drug offenses and you forfeited your rights as a lawful permanent resident. Sorry, I'm going to take your green card at the secondary. I will let you in, but you have to come back and talk to my supervisor at deferred inspection a month from now, 2 months from now. That's, in this day and age, that situation is almost like a privilege already, because the client that I just told you about, their green card got taken. They were not allowed to leave. They got directly handed over to ICE. They were locked up in the airport for over 3 days, over 36 hours without clothes other than what they're wearing, without anything else, without food, without medicine, without anything. Again, the 60, 70-year-old grandpa, right? U.S. citizen grandchildren's, right? And children. Again, doesn't matter because of a criminal offense they committed 10 years ago, before they even got the green card, right? So that is the situation in the United States. And you might think that is insane. That cannot possibly be the situation, right? In law, we learn there's a normal business course of action. That even if there's no contract written between two parties, if there is a give and take, if there's a routine, if there's a tradition that you guys do, that tradition, that harmony, that dance between two individuals, two corporations, that become its own legal document that you can rely upon. And when that is broken, you can almost sue for. But think about that on a green card situation. They got a green card for 10 years. They've been flying out in a country, no problem. The criminal record they had, they did the responsible thing to get it dismissed. They did everything well. They paid all the taxes. They didn't commit any continuing offense. The case is so old, by the way. We went to the court and they said, sorry, it's so old. Everything is shredded. The only thing we have is this last judgment. Nothing else remains. Again, 10 plus years ago. And it has already been dismissed and sealed, right? So it's definitely not a big thing. And the government tried to go get it, by the way, and the court didn't give it to the government because the government didn't have the case number. Isn't that funny? Government tried to get it, couldn't get it. We went and we got it because we did a background check and we got the case number and we got it. The family didn't have the case number either, by the way. And so this grandpa flew in and out of the country 10 years, no problem. And suddenly, with a change in administration, a memo from the president saying the CBP officers, the customs officers, must uphold to the highest, to prosecute to the highest extent of the law that's permissible to them, to protect the United States against invasion. I'm almost directly quoting the president's executive order here. And now CBP officers, they have their own internal policy. Hey, you have a criminal record. We detain you, we confiscate your green card, we give you to ICE. It's now their jurisdiction, you go through immigration court. There's an immigration court, the trial is like in a month. They basically get locked up for over a month, sometimes even longer, right? This is crazy, but it is happening right here, right now, all across the US. If you have a criminal record as a green card holder flying back, that is something that you need to be aware of. So what can you do? Well, have your disposition ready, right? Get your court documents because again, the CBP officers, They just see you have been arrested before, you have been convicted before, but they don't know the details to it. And there's immigration law that says some cases, for example, domestic violence is a great example, that could be something where you become inadmissible, you cannot enter the country, you forfeit your green card, or it could not be, right? Because it depends on if it is a crime involving moral turpitude, CIMT. If you've committed an offense under state law or federal law, that is not even in the United States, you could commit a crime overseas. If you did something, whether you've been convicted or not, if the CBP officers, custom officers, think that you might have committed a crime involving moral turpitude, you are such a bad person that you forfeited your right and privileges of a green card holder, of a lawful permanent resident, then they cannot let you in. Again, that all stems from the basis that you're seeking admission. So that's a dangerous thing when green card holders are overseas, right? Because if they're here, customs cannot come and get you. ICE is probably not going to come and get you if you're a green card holder, unless, again, who knows? Given what's going on in the world right now, maybe this will happen a couple months from now, right? But as of now, if you're a green card holder in the United States, or if you leave temporarily and you just come back in, technically you're not seeking admission. Technically, you did not leave, and they don't have to inspect you. All right, that's the general principle. But you're gone for 3 months, you're gone for 6 months, you're gone for longer, then you might be deemed inadmissible, and they could confiscate your green card. So that is what's going on right now, right? We're having a lot of meetings with the customs officers. We're having a lot of these meetings on the local level and the national level. I wanted to wait, for like a few weeks from now, after going to a meeting with the customs officers, and give you guys the latest update. But these things are happening in real time, so I just wanted to share that with you now. It is April 2025, and these are crazy times at customs, both at the land border and at the airports across this country. Okay? All right, so sorry, I'm not trying to do the whole fear-mongering thing, right? For 4 years, you have seen me on this channel talking about how we did different success cases, the strategies, what works. But I'm telling you, last year, things got stricter, twice as strict as the previous years, right? It's been like, it was easy in 2020, 2021, and then it doubled in 2022, and it got doubled again in 2023, 24. But now it's like quadrupled from last year, right? Things are getting to a serious point where people's green cards get confiscated, even leaving the United States for less than 1 year, okay? So, what can you do? Okay, I'm gonna talk about what you can do to prepare. And then we're gonna jump into the segment where we do the success story, where I talk about, well, what happens at the worst case scenario. Okay, so but before we get into the success story, let's talk a little bit about what our trends are seeing, what's going on. So imagine you are a green card holder and you're coming into the country and you are presenting your green card and your passport and you're showing, hey, I want to come into the country, as you've always done. If you've left for more than 3 months, 6 months, you might get an eyebrow. They might raise their eyebrow and ask, why did you leave for so long? Where do you live? Where is your home? Because if somebody leaves for 6 months or longer, right? Are you paying your mortgage for 6 months? Are you still leasing your place in the US? Do you still have a home in the United States? If you've left the US for over 6 months, technically under IRS rules, you might not even file taxes, right? Because you're not even a resident. You didn't stay here for 180 days. So why have you been out for so long? And what are your US ties? Those are the things that they care a lot about. And there's so many ways to prove it, right? You could talk about, I was gone temporarily because my family was sick. I had to take care of my mom. I broke a leg. I couldn't get back. I had a heart attack. There's all these major things that happened over there. I got robbed and I had to go through a lawsuit overseas. I was inheriting my family's business and I'm selling it. The reason I had to leave was temporary in nature. I do not have a pattern of leaving and staying out. I am not using my green card as a tourist visa. You have to give an explanation, a justification, an account of why you have left for that period and as a temporary reason. Now, of course, the officers trust their system more than anything. They trust what they see. So what can they see? They can see the past 5 years, they can see the past 10 years travel records. So if every single year you've been out and then you come back for only a short period and you go out again, now it is your burden that you have to explain all of that. For the past 10 years, why are you out for 300 days? Right? How come you every time you fly in for 10 days and you leave again? You have to give an account why that is temporary. It could work, right? If you look through our success stories, we've shown you all the different reasons that different clients have done. Somebody who's left for 5 years, 8 years, 9 years, 13 years, all the different excuses and reasons that we justify when we prepare that have worked, but you need to do that, okay? And also, the officers can also see your travel tickets. So if you booked a round trip ticket, you booked a ticket overseas to come into the United States and then you're going to leave in 10 days, bet that officers could see that. And do not lie. We had another client, this was like a few months ago. They had a green card, they had a reentry permit. They came in as a valid reentry permit and they only left the US for less than 6 months, okay? So they have a reentry permit. They left for less than 6 months because they're flying in and out of the country with the reentry permit, okay? But this is where things got really crazy. The officer asked, oh, how long are you staying this time? And the client said, oh, I'm going to stay for a few months. But the officer saw there's a return ticket for a week from now. And the officer got livid, like just lit the client on fire and said, I'm going to confiscate your green card. I'm going to confiscate your reentry permit. I think you're lying to me. I don't believe you. The past 5 years, you haven't lived in the US. And again, this client had a better record than most of our clients, right? He's literally flying into the US almost every single year since COVID. He stays for, 10 days, 15 days, but he flies back again, another trip, right? He has US home, he has taxes, he has a business, but because of that one lie, maybe the officer was just in a terrible mood that day, but boy, that client was scared. I'm not gonna cuss, but bam, that client, and then next day contacted us and was freaking out. Like, I got pulled into secondary, my reentry permit didn't work. They told me they're gonna confiscate my green card. They were typing furiously on this in the secondary in the system. What can I do? What can I say? And they had to, well, he still has to leave. He still got the green card back and he still got the reentry permit back, but good luck flying back next time and you better prepare well, right? So again, as a warning, right? If you are flying in and you know you're gonna turn around and you might wanna spend a little bit more money and just buy 2 one-way tickets, right? You buy one-way ticket, come in, and then if you really need to leave, buy another one-way ticket out later on, right? Leaving the US, nobody really cares. It's only when you come in that matters, and the officers can see that. But second, don't lie, right? Because the officers can see it and they know, right? And so make your explanation clear. Well, I need to leave. That's why I got the reentry permit, right? And every time I come in, I need to do this business activity. And then I have businesses abroad. I have businesses at both places. I'm a flying salesman, so I have to be in 2 places. That's a fine, legitimate explanation. But just don't lie and don't try to swindle the officer. This is not a time to do improv. Now, what else can you do to prepare? Well, don't be so stressed. I know, I'm sorry. I know this whole thing is probably very stressful. I get it. But maintain your smile, maintain your composure. Show that you are a respectable, professional individual, right? You have family, you have work, you are a good person that the United States wants. You just need to give that explanation. Try to speak as much as you can because they are police officers. They went through the police academy. They got trained to decipher your eye movements, your smile. They're trying to decipher awkwardness. So they ask you questions and you want to respond appropriately. Sometimes the answer doesn't even matter. You know how many times I've represented clients and entered the United States talking to officers? Over 500 times now. Okay, over 500 times representing clients, going with them and entering and talking to the officer. I can tell you, when the officer asks you a question, a lot of times they don't care about the answer. They care about how you answer the question. If you start sweating profusely, if you start stuttering, if you start acting awkward, if you just shove a packet of documents in front of them and ask them to read it, they're going to think something's up, right? Their questions are supposed to be super simple. Where do you live? Where were you out? What do you do? How old are you? How was your flight? You know, like it's a simple engagement between the human spirit, between them and you, and they're asking and trying to elicit information and to judge you if you're good or not. That's what happens in the first 90 seconds. Now, of course, if you have a really bad record, if they see it, then they ask you some more detailed information. Why were you out for 9 months? Why were you out for 3 years? Then you have to prepare a better answer. But still, your answer is not as important as how you answer it, okay? So that's, I think, super important, right? Prepare your documents, but don't shove it to the officer. Just hold on to it and talk to them, and you can have the documents as a backup and if they ask, or during secondary, you could present it, right? They could definitely see your phone. They could definitely check your phone. Even without your permission, they could do it, but they still ask. Again, just to test how awkward you are, right? Again, they're trying to catch criminals, right? It's, you know, I go meet with these CBP officers a lot on a weekly basis sometimes. Think about their job. It doesn't bring them exquisite joy to harass people, right? They see 30,000, 40,000 people every single day. They don't have the time and day. By harassing you, they have to expend energy. It's not their cup of tea. They are here as police officers. They swear an oath to the Constitution to protect the United States against invasion, all sorts of stuff. They're trying to catch major criminals, liars, drug traffickers, sex traffickers, all sorts of terrible people. That's what makes them happy. They catch somebody lying, somebody who's up to something shady. So if you, who are naturally a good person, but because of convenience, you lie, you didn't prepare well, and they catch you in that lie, they might think the worst, and suddenly you're screwed, right? That's a very technical, legal definition, all right? I'm just kidding. But what happens? Well, they could confiscate your green card, they could put you in deferred inspection, and the worst case scenario is they could put you in a court proceeding. So there's definitely a lot more that I could share about this subject. But again, I've already made like 30, 40 videos on it. I'm just saying right now things are getting really strict. You definitely want to prepare well. I've already explained you want to do at the primary, you want to prepare well to explain to them at the secondary. And if your green card gets confiscated, you go to deferred inspection and you could try to explain it there. And if that doesn't work, you have an immigration trial, then that's what we are going to talk about during the success story. I'll stop here. I'll take questions for now, and then we're gonna launch our filming. Yeah.
Thank you. Is the court reopening withholding cases for I-485 now?
Yes, immigration courts are reopening. We have seen a lot of cases that were previously closed. Now they are able to reopen those cases. It is not, don't take it for granted that every case can be opened, right? So, you know, there was an era that any case can be reopened as long as somebody petitions it, you know, but from what we've seen, there was another era that no cases are able to be opened, and now we're sort of in between. Some cases can be reopened, some not, depends on the merit, depends on the judge. They are still swamped with an overwhelming amount of cases, and new cases at that as well. So they don't have the time and day to do everything, but if you can give a really good explanation as to why your case needs to be reopened, I have seen it done, yes.
What if you are in country adjusting with dismissal arrest record?
I'll repeat the question. You are in the country, you're in the United States, you're filing for adjustment of status, but you have a criminal record even though it's been dismissed. What risk do you face at the interview or for your application? It completely depends on what that case is. In the past, right, prior to this year, last year, you could almost say, well, since it got dismissed, you can make a good argument that that didn't happen and you are still eligible to adjust. But now we're seeing a lot more scrutiny. And especially now there's almost mandatory interview. So you better prepare a lot. It doesn't mean your case will be denied. Still do a thorough assessment and prepare really well. It doesn't mean you need to immediately file it with these USCIS officers, right? So a lot of times, like for example, our office, if you're a client, we would say you do a really good packet explaining why you did not commit a crime of moral turpitude, why your case does not is not elevated to the point of deportability, inadmissibility, and you can still get a green card. You'll still prepare that, but you carry it with you, right? We still file the normal adjustment applications. We disclose everything. We provide the criminal dismissal, and we hope that the officer reads it and says, okay, this is not a problem, we'll approve it. Or if they do have a question, you can explain it in person and they'll approve it. But to go through the effort of submitting everything right off the bat might actually make cases worse, but at least that is how we're doing it right now. Things might change in a few months, but that's my advice.
Okay. I got my green card 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Is it safe for me to travel?
You got your green card 6 months ago. Is it safe to travel? Under all normal circumstances, totally fine. If you're only traveling for a week, a month, probably fine. If you have any criminal records, I would advise not traveling.
Can I sell my citizenship?
Can you sell your citizenship? Wow. I am sure there is a black market because there's a black market for everything. But legally, there's no way for you to sell your citizenship in the context of you foregoing your citizenship and just transferring your citizenship to another human being. But, you know, all jokes aside, I would warn against selling citizenships or any type of transactions. There are plenty of mafia, no good doers who would love to engage in a transaction with you so you can help people, smuggle people in, go through all sorts of things for a fee. But it might just be a really terrible mistake that you will regret for the rest of your life if you get caught.
TPS to F1 possible on previously expired F1 OPT.
That's like so many acronyms all at once, right? Or can you say it again?
TPS to F1
Okay.
possible on previously expired F1/OPT.
All right. You were previously an international student, so you had an F1 status in the United States. And then you got a TPS, so you're protected. And then now your F1 international student expired, but your TPS is still valid and you want to go back to being an F1. The answer is yes, provided that things are valid. So you can always transfer in and out of different non-immigrant visa categories, provided that they are valid still. But if your TPS already expired, then you can no longer change to anything else. Where are we getting more questions? TikTok or Instagram? Who's winning? TikTok is winning? Dang, man, TikTok.
Okay. Is it safe to travel internationally, have a criminal record, USCIS new, but granted US citizenship?
Oh, if you are a US citizen and you're coming back to the United States, as of now, there's no major news or cases that we've seen where you get in trouble. Now, of course, if you have multiple identities, if they can mistake you as somebody else, then you might have trouble. But generally speaking, we haven't seen CBP officers harass any US citizens. They always have the authority to protect against national security threats, so they have the authority to, but it's not nearly in the same realm as green card holders or F1 international students or any other aliens entering the country. Okay, last two questions before we do success story.
Okay. Too many questions. I had my interview for almost 6 months and still not approved. What can cause that?
It depends on what interview you went through, right? So normally citizenship, and for 100 interviews, typically you could hear back within a week. Sometimes we hear it in the same day. But if it's 6 months, it's getting a little bit long. If it's over a year, of 2 years, then you can sue the government under mandamus or APA because they're They're depriving you of your civil liberties by denying your citizenship, right? But 6 months is getting to the point where it's kind of long for citizenship interviews. For adjustment of status, for 751 waiver, for any sort of other interviews with USCIS, the processing time for these interviews usually 2 months or 3 months. So if it's getting to 6 months, either they lost your case or you are under administrative investigation, meaning they might have sent a contractor slash FBI to go investigate whether your claims are true or not true. And this could go on for 2, 3, 4 years. Again, if you can't wait, you can always sue them to speed things up. But 6 months is, unfortunately, compared to all cases, not yet super crazy long, right? It's long, it's not super crazy long, but it's definitely not fast.
Can a person file a VAWA case if abuse happened 20 years ago when they were a minor?
Wow, I am not sure there is a statute of limitations on the VAWA claim. So if it happened 20 years ago, I don't see why you can't file it. Although, no, VAWA was enacted already 20 years ago. So, I mean, I guess that shows my age. But yeah, wow, I remember when VAWA was enacted in the 1990s. Crazy. Yeah, so 20 years ago, VAWA was already enacted. If you were a minor at that time and your U.S. citizen parent abused you, abused your parent, your other parent, you could technically do it. But the question is, what status are you in the United States and what happens afterwards, right? So you still want to prove that you are eligible and you maintained your status. Yeah, well, there's a video we did on our YouTube channel. You should search for this. And I claimed it that the most difficult immigration case that we've ever done. And it was a VAWA case that happened about 20 years ago. But basically, it's a U.S. citizen spouse abused this Indian woman. And then the spouse passed away. And then the mother, right, the wife, got their status through the VAWA, but had a priority date for about like 10, 20 years, and then filing for adjustment. So you needed to prove VAWA was legitimate. You needed to prove the 20 years stay in the United States was legitimate. You needed to prove that a dying petitioner, they still are able to qualify under 204L and still get it. So it was like 4 or 5 different cases all at the same time, but it ultimately got approved. I think this was done in like 2 years ago. But if you search for that, I don't even know what thumbnail it would be, but it's definitely on our list. Email us, right? Yeah, contact us. We'll send you the link. Okay, so it's definitely possible, but there's a lot of complications to that.